All right, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for joining us today for our webinar. Today's webinar topic is going to be quality control. What to know before you return a watch back to the customer. We are the American Watchmakers and Clockmakers Institute, or AWCI, abbreviated. We present this webinar as a service to the watch repair community. The mission statement of AWCI is setting service standards and educating the horological community. We are offering this free webinar as a service to the industry to help fulfill our mission. We hope that after the webinar is complete that you will participate in a follow-up survey that will be sent to you that helps us give us valuable feedback on future topics and different ways we can refine our current webinars. Also, you can contact any of us during the webinar with questions or comments that you may have. There's a questions pane on the webinar software that you can use to submit questions, or there is a raise your hand feature you can also do. And if you raise your hand at the end of the webinar, we can call on you and you can ask your question then. So please feel free to have any questions you might have during the webinar to ask us anything that's on your mind. So, quality control. Today we're going to talk about procedures you should follow before returning a watch to your customer. These procedures are valuable whether you have a watchmaker in your store, you send your repair work out to a trade shop, or you even send the watches back to the manufacturer. But before we get on the topic at hand, I want to take a moment to introduce our panel of watchmakers. Today we have 3 21st century certified watchmakers with us. We have Drew Zimmerman. He'll be working behind the scenes to answer your questions that you submit on the questions pane. He is a second-generation watchmaker and the vice president of AWCI. He is the owner of Zimmerman Watch Repair in York, Pennsylvania, and he's been working in the watch and jewelry business for more than 10 years. We also have Jordan Ficklin with us. He's going to be on the webinar here with me. He is the current executive director of AWCI. He is a first-generation watchmaker and began working in the jewelry industry in 2001. He has served in many roles in the industry, everything from jewelry and watch sales all the way up to head watchmaker. My name is Aaron Rexick. I'm a fourth-generation horologist, and I'm the secretary of AWCI. I work at a family-owned watch and clock business in Salt Lake City, Utah, and I've been working in the watch and clock business since 2002. We'd also like to take a moment to thank our sponsors, Jules Burrell and Casker Company. They've been very generous to sponsor this webinar and help get the word out. They are watch and jewelry and clock tools and parts suppliers, also materials. So anything you might need along those lines, please help out our sponsors there. So on the topic at hand, following proper quality control procedures. This will help you protect yourself from unintentional work swapping, getting jobs mixed up, obviously, is not an ideal scenario. This will help reduce the likelihood of a return issue. We call that comebacks on the repair side of things. Watch that you have repaired and you've received a fee or you've charged a customer for it. If it's come back for some issue that was supposed to be resolved, that's what we call a comeback. This will help you reduce the likelihood of those. Following the procedures also makes your customers happy. And a big reason we want to keep the customers happy is because the happier the customers, the more money they will spend in your store, which is really what helps your bottom line. So I'm going to turn the time over to Jordan. He's going to elaborate more on the specifics of those, and I'll be back with you in a little bit.
Thank you, Aaron. So continuing on the theme of quality control, which is the theme for our webinar, obviously, some of the most important elements of good quality control are having a standard set of operating procedures, a checklist of things that you do for every single watch or clock that you service, that you can follow these procedures to ensure that when it goes back to the customer that you've met their expectations and delivered a quality product. Also, very good communication with the customer. A good job envelope or repair contract that has a thorough and accurate description of the item and a thorough set of requests from the customer. And then a good procedure of inspection of the watch that's carried out by 2 different individuals to make sure that everything was done properly. And we're going to go into more detail for these individual items here. Looking at the standard operating procedure here, a standard operating procedure for quality control is designed to accomplish the following items. It wants to make sure that the customer's items are not mixed up, right? As Aaron said, you don't want these things to get mixed up and then returned to the wrong person. That's going to make them lose entire faith. It could cost you a lot of money. It's also designed to make sure the customer's requests are fulfilled and to make sure that the quality of the repair meets the standards that you've established in your workshop. So in order to carry that out, you need to have proper take-in procedures, including a good job envelope, consistent communication with the customer. You should have a customer record or master job ticket that's kept constantly up to date with the status of the repair, the location of the job, a good job scheduling system, a good set of timing checks, and an inspection of the timepiece by 2 different people to ensure that everything has been done properly. So quality service really begins at the moment that the customer walks in the door and you receive the watch from them. If you don't gather the right information from the customer when you receive it for repair, you'll never be able to meet their expectations and to ensure that all the work is performed correctly. And so we covered a lot of these items in our webinar take-in procedures, and we encourage you to go back and watch that if you didn't attend that webinar. It's available on our webpage at awci.com/webinars or on our YouTube channel at youtube.com/awci. And in that webinar, we focus on the specific tools, kinds of questions, information you should get from the customer when you receive the watch. And then we're going to review in this webinar how some of those tools can be useful to make sure that when the customer receives their watch back, that you did everything that you could to keep them happy and to win their repeat business in the future. So we're going to talk about communication here just for a moment. Quality is a subjective thing, right? Your idea of high quality may be different from somebody else's. So your number 1 job is to manage the customer's expectations through good communication. From the time they step foot in your store, you should be setting their expectations appropriately. If your store is all about super high-end goods, high quality, never having any mistakes, when they walk in the door, they should see that. They should see people who are dressed to communicate high quality. The stuff in the showcases should communicate high quality. And certainly the way that you communicate with them and take care of their timepiece should communicate high quality. At any point during the repair process, if any clarification is needed or if there's a change, an update, if the job's going to be late, you should communicate with the customer. So the kinds of things that absolutely need to be communicated is any delay in finishing the work. There's no reason for the customer ever to come in your store and want to pick up the watch on its due date and not have it be ready. They should have found out before they came in the store that there would be some kind of delay. Anytime you need to change the price, you should communicate that with the customer. Any questions you might have about optional services or anything new that you learned throughout the repair process that you want to communicate with the customer should be talk to them immediately. And you should know the best way to communicate with them. That's one of those things in the take-in. You should find out whether text or email or phone is the preferred way to communicate with the customer. So you want to be sure that you keep, along the way as you communicate, the master record up to date. So there should be 3 copies of a repair slip. One should be the customer's, one should stay with the job at all times, and the other one should be kept in a fireproof safe, or it can be an electronic version of it. They should always be kept up to date with all the information about the job. So if you send the job out to another shop for repair, it should be indicated on that slip. Even if it's gone, if the watchmaker's got it or the estimating department has it, it should be indicated on there. Once they've approved it and you've scheduled the job and you have a set due date, that should be on the master record. Any update to the estimate or pricing information and what the customer has agreed to regarding that should be kept up to date on that. And every time you communicate with a customer, there should be a record of that on the envelope. So there should be a place where you can fill in, spoke with them on this date, we talked about this, they approved the estimate for the work, or I spoke with them on such and such a date to let them know that we were going to need 2 extra days to get the work done, or called and let them know the job was ready 5 days early. All that kind of communication is going to have a positive impact on the customer, and you should keep that information up to date on the record should there be any question which arises about that. So we're going to take a moment here before we talk about job scheduling to ask just a quick poll of all of you who are in the webinar here. And the question we have for you is, do you keep a record of every communication with the customer? So I'm going to go ahead and do that. It should pop up on your screen. If you can take a moment to just check yes or no on the box to indicate whether or not you record all communication with the customer. And we'll give you just a minute to vote on that. All right, looks like most of you had a chance to go ahead and respond to the poll. We'll give you just 10 more seconds if anybody else wants to chime in and answer the question there. And then we'll go ahead and close this down and share the results. Okay, so you should be seeing the results of the poll now in front of you there. Looks like about 3/4 of you are keeping a good record of all your communication with the customers, and that's what we like to see. It's just in case something comes up and they go, say they show up to pick up the job and it's not ready, and we go, oh, well, we left you a message, or we spoke with your wife, or we spoke with you on such and such a date to let you know we need a couple extra days. We apologize you came all the way down here. We tried to reach out to you. Never confrontational, but it's good to have that record so hey, I did the right things, and then you can show them that we did everything that we could to reach out to you and let you know that we were going to need some additional time, or you approved the estimate on such and such a date. It happens occasionally that the customer doesn't remember that sort of stuff, so it's good to have a record of it. All right, so with that, I think we're going to hand this over to, I'm going to cover one more topic, and then we're going to hand this back over to Aaron. So last topic here is job scheduling. All right. So this can be difficult to keep track of, especially in a larger workshop, but you should have a great way to schedule jobs. You need to always make sure that there is adequate time to perform a quality repair. Good quality work takes time. All right. So when you schedule the job, you should take into consideration, how busy is the watchmaker? Are there parts that will need to be ordered? Sometimes that can take a week or two to get parts in. You need to allow for that. Remember that your typical mechanical watch service has 4 days of quality control tagged onto the end of it. And you should always build in a little bit of an emergency buffer for that unforeseen circumstance. Somebody calls in sick, or parts take a little longer than expected, so that you can exceed the customer's expectations. If you let them know the job's going to be done in 4 weeks and it's done in 3 weeks, they're going to be ecstatic. But if you tell them 3 weeks and it takes 4 weeks, then they're going to be less happy. Even if you communicate with them, that will lessen the blow, but there's always still a little bit of a negative when it takes too long. So you should record those dates on a calendar or in your computer with the calendar. Set reminders for yourself so that you can reach out to the customer before there's a problem with any kind of late job. So the second you know there's going to be a problem, give the customer a call and let them know you're going to need a little bit of extra time. The difference between 2 weeks from now and 16 days from now is nothing to the customer. The difference between tomorrow and next week is huge for them. So the sooner you can communicate that, the less of a problem it's going to be for the customer. right? Never let a customer come in to pick up a job on its due date and find that it's not completed. You should definitely reach out to them before that comes. And one thing that's good to do is to review each morning or at the beginning of each week the jobs that are supposed to be due that week or in the coming days, so that you can make sure that they're on schedule, and anything that's not on schedule, you can reach out to the customer there to let them know. All right, so we're going to hand this back to Aaron. He's going to talk a little bit about some of the checks that a watchmaker should be performing as part of their quality control.
All right, thank you, Jordan. So what we're talking about now is how to QC the watch, watchmaker QC. We'll go through a step of procedures that any watchmaker should follow to ensure that their repair that they performed was to the higher standard and everything is functioning properly. Everything that can be checked again by a customer service agent should be checked again. So if you're sending your watches out and you receive them back, there are some things that you can do to test the watch to ensure that the work was performed properly. And there's different levels of that, and we can explain that to you here a little bit. But first, I wanted to take launch a quick poll again, just briefly, and ask a question of the audience here, and that will help us gauge on where you're at. The poll is, do you currently test watches or clocks that come back from an outside service center? So if you've received a watch back, do you in any way test it to ensure the work was done properly? We'll let you fill out that poll real quick, and we'll be back with you in just a minute. All right, looks like most of you have voted. We'll give you another 30 seconds or so, and hopefully get the rest of you in on the vote. All right, let's go ahead and close out that poll and share the results with you. So it looks like same result as last poll. About 3/4 of you are testing watches that come from an outside service center. That's good. So let's go through now what some of those tests might be. So a typical mechanical watch, you're going to go and put it through a 4-day test. Quartz watches also, do similar tests, maybe not quite as long, but let's go through the steps that would be performed on a typical 4-day timing test. All right, so first we'll go through automatic watches. The proper procedures that are going to go through on this test would be, obviously, when the watch is completed, the timing would be regulated on an instantaneous timing machine. This timing machine will tell you right at that moment in what position, what kind of time that watch is keeping. After it's as close as possible with using that timing machine, the watch is going to be cased up. The water test is going to be performed on the case to make sure that none of the outside elements are interfering. And then the watch will be fully wound. The date and time will be set by a reference clock compared to a master clock. Usually an atomic clock or a clock on your phone or your computer are going to be all on the same master clock. And then what you will do is you will place the watch in the stem left position as you are looking at it from the dial perspective. So the 12 o'clock side of the watch will be facing down. And then you will put that in the safe overnight for the first 24 hours. So after the first 24 hours, you will record the date and time that is shown on the watch and compare that to the time that you took at the beginning. And then you will take the watch and put it on a 1 rotation per minute final test winder. This is also referred to as a wear simulator. It just rotates the watch through all the different positions because any watch is going to keep slightly different time in each position as forces of gravity work on the movement differently. So after it's been on the 1 RPM final test winder for another 24 hours, you're going to remove from the final test winder, record the date and the time again, and then place the watch dial up also in the safe overnight. So you're at 2 days from the watch being completed at this point. So then after another 24 hours, you will record the date and the time again after it's been sitting dial up for 24 hours. And that'll give you the average between all of those rates of the recording the date and the time will give you the average time that the watch will keep as it's being worn in regular scenarios on the wrist. And then at that point, you will wait until the watch stops, which is usually after about 96 hours total. So most watches have about a 48-hour power reserve. Some have a little bit longer, 50, 55, 60 hours. But usually after 24 hours from the last time you recorded the date and time is when the watch will be stopped, and you would record the date and the time when it stopped, and that will be the way that you calculate the power reserve. So similar way to test manual wind watch would be all of the same procedures, except for you're not actually winding. You would actually have to hand wind the watch after you take the watch from the first day of testing. When you put it on the winder, it's obviously not going to wind automatically at that point. So you would have to manually hand wind it at that point and then do the same procedure as far as testing the power reserve. Quartz watches are also similar. Obviously, there's not as many mechanics in there, and they don't wind up automatically, but it is necessary to test quartz watches on a final test winder or a final test wear simulator, because the hands are going to shift positions if it's rotating through all the different positions, and the hands could be rubbing or touching at a certain point, so you want to have the watch being rotated through all the different positions as you're testing it. So let's talk a little bit about tools that are used to test timing after you've received it from an outside service center. You can, if your budget is big enough, purchase a professional timing machine. These are what watchmakers use and what service centers use. In most cases, this is not necessary if you're just testing, just doing quick QC on a watch, just to verify that it was done properly. But those are the three main brands, AWCI, Griner, and Elma. Those are the three main brands that produce those machines. But these machines do cost $4,000 on up for a good machine. So usually most shops that are sending work out are not going to invest that kind of money in a time machine, but we thought we would inform you of that if that's something that you wanted to get in your shop. There's also a little bit less expensive option. It's called the Lepsi watch scope. We used one of these a few weeks back, and I can attest that it actually does work quite well. What it comes with is a nice microphone that's similar. It looks similar to how the watch is displayed in a presentation box when the watch is new, but it has a cord that comes out of it that hooks up to a smartphone or an iPad, and it has a specific app that you use with it, and this way you can view all kinds of data that you would like, whether it's just kind of a pass-fail scenario. It actually uses like a star rating system, anywhere from 1 to 4 stars, or if you can turn it on to watchmaker mode, and it can give you more specific data on the health of how the watch is running. This is also a good tool to use at the point of sale. If you have this, you can put the watch on there and test it, and you can inform the customer at that point if you feel like it needs a servicing or not before you send it to the watchmaker for an estimate, just to set their expectations. There's also some really basic software that you can use that are app-driven, also with your smartphone or tablet. One of them is called Kello, K-E-L-L-O, And this uses a microphone that you can either purchase a really high quality microphone or use your headphones. It's not as reliable by using your headphones that come with your phone, but that is an instantaneous timing machine that can give you an idea of how the watch is running. There's also an app called Twixt, T-W-I-X-T, and this is used by taking a picture of the face of the watch, tracing out the hands and the position of the hands. It uses the timestamp from when the picture was taken, and it compares it to the timestamp after the watch has run for 24 hours at least. You do the same procedure, take a picture, trace the hands, and it'll give you a plus or minus of what the watch ran over that 24-hour period. So that's probably the most basic version, but that's an easy, quick way, instead of comparing it to a master clock and writing down, oh, it was 14 seconds faster than the master clock, and you come back to it and you try to write all that down. That app is just an easy way to keep track of that. So we're going to pass it back to Jordan, and he's going to give you some tips and information on the inspection of the watch itself, a visual and physical inspection.
Thank you, Aaron. So as we've been talking here, the watchmaker, when he gets done servicing the watch, is going to run the watch through some quality control checks, and he should carry out a thorough inspection visually of the watch, as well as just the timing checks to make sure that everything is done. The watchmaker should always do their own quality control. This is part of what makes a good watchmaker. But these checks should then be repeated by either another watchmaker or by a customer service technician or salesperson or specialist before the customer is called to be notified their watch is ready. It's great if you have a dedicated staff member to make these checks. That way they can follow the same procedure every time, and you can deliver consistent, high-quality service to the customer every single time. So we're going to talk about some of the things that you should look at here. But first, we're going to launch another poll here and find out if you have a dedicated person on your staff who's in charge of quality control. So let's go ahead and launch that question. Take just a minute and respond to that if you would, whether or not you have a dedicated person for quality control on staff. All right, we're going to go ahead and wrap up this question here. So if there's anybody left to vote, go ahead right now. All right, we're going to go ahead and close that down. Most of you have already voted. And share the results. You're a very consistent group with us today. 3 out of 4 of you again have on staff somebody who's dedicated to quality control, and that's excellent. The one dedicated person helps make sure each time that you are inspecting all the same things on the watch, and they can adapt and change that method as they learn of problems that may be arising as well. All right, so let's look at some specific things that you should be looking for. The first set of checks here are to help us ensure that the item in the envelope matches the description. This is the test to make sure we didn't mix things up accidentally. Especially if you work on mostly one specific brand, lots of watches can look the same. It can be easy to get things mixed up or get bracelets mixed up. So these checks are to make sure that doesn't happen, or to catch it if it does happen. So you should always check serial numbers, model numbers, style, match the description on the envelope. So when you took in the watch, you put a good thorough description of it, included the color of the dial, all this kind of stuff. You want to check that stuff. All right? You should count the number of links on the bracelet. You did it when you brought in the watch. You want to do it again before you return it to the customer. That's a good check to make sure you've got the right bracelet in place, and also make sure that you didn't put it back together wrong or something when you had it apart for refinishing. Right? And that includes checking the position of the clasp. Lots of watchmakers will disassemble the bracelet partially when they refinish, or move the bracelet out to its longest position for refinishing. and you want to check and make sure that got put back to the right place. So in order to check that, you have to have a system in place to record what that position was before the work is done. You can do that when you receive the watch, or the watchmaker can make a mark of some kind before they do that. If they do, say, scribe a mark inside, that's what you're looking for to make sure that it got returned to that original position. It's also a good idea to check the notes and see if there was a box or anything else that was brought in with the watch when it came in, and you want to make sure that it gets reunited at this point to those items so that you aren't hunting for that after the customer comes back in to pick up their item. You want to make sure everything is together. You've got the presentation, everything they expect to have back with the watch. So the next one is we want to make sure that whatever the customer asked to be done got taken care of. All right, so sure, the customer comes in and says my watch needs to be fixed or needs to be serviced, but we look for more specific stuff. And then we also look for if there's any specific things that may not be required that they wanted to do. So we're reading the envelope and we're checking to see if the customer asked for it not to be refinished, or if they asked for it to be refinished, did that get taken care of? If it was noted that the clasp was loose, did we tighten the clasp? If the crystal was scratched, or if the customer asked for a new crystal, did it get replaced? If they wanted a new strap because the old one was worn out or broken, did the new strap get installed on the watch? Just want to make sure that whatever the customer asked for, that we did it here in this point. So it's just comparing the envelope to the work that got taken care of on the watch. And the next one is were the customer's concerns resolved? So they brought in the watch to be serviced, but why did they bring it in to be serviced? Was it an issue with the timekeeping? Was it an issue with it was difficult to wind, or it was stopping overnight? So you want to verify that the watchmaker in his service addressed these specific issues. So if the customer was particular about their timekeeping, pull out those time results. Make sure that the watchmaker got it dialed in right where it needs to be. Or maybe this is an instance where it wasn't a full service, but it had been recently serviced and they were coming back to have it refined a little bit. Check those timing results and make sure that the watchmaker did what was asked. Did they speed it up a little bit or slow it down a little bit as the customer asked? If it was stopping, you want to look at that power reserve test. Make sure that you got the full power reserve out of that watch when the watchmaker did the final test, right? And of course, as I mentioned, the watchmaker is going to perform all these same tests too, so they should be looking at these things on the envelope and making sure they did that stuff. But then the quality control person should also double check all these items. Does the watch function? Right? It seems obvious, but these are so important. So whoever's doing the quality control should take the time to wind the watch, set the date, set the time, make sure everything is functioning and going smoothly there. They should generally observe the watch to make sure that everything is working correctly. They should test to see if the clasp is tight. They should test to see if, make sure a water resistance test got carried out on the watch at this point in time. Just to make sure that everything the watch should be doing, it is doing, right? And so then we're going to do this kind of visual inspection here. We're going to check the refinishing quality of the watch. Was it properly refinished? Look at the watch, make sure the correct finishes are in all the right places, make sure that there's no scratches left on there that could be taken out. Is it clean? You know, did all the grime get cleaned out of it, including any polishing compound from the refinishing process? You don't want to give it back to the customer. It should be shiny and pretty and new. When they put it on the wrist, it shouldn't leave a black mark, any of this kind of stuff. So pull out your loop and inspect in between the links next to the case around and make sure everything is good. Are there any marks or damages that weren't indicated on the envelope? You want to be aware of this. The last thing you want is for the customer to come in and say, hey, what's this big scratch or dent? That wasn't there when I left my watch. You're looking at the envelope and making sure, okay, we took a note of these items, okay, I don't see anything that wasn't noted originally, that's good. That way those things can be resolved before the customer comes in. And you're going to look carefully at the dial and hands, at the face and the crystal with a loop. Make sure that they are clean and free of lint or debris. This is one of the last things the watchmaker does before he closes up the watch, is a careful inspection to make sure there isn't a piece of lint or a piece of dust or something there. But the quality control person, the watch was on the final test, it got moved around, it got put in the job envelope, taken out of the job envelope, and sometimes these things dislodge and show up from nowhere. This is a last line of defense to make sure there's nothing there that the customer is going to see and go, what's this? You want to make sure you catch it at this point. And a really easy mistake is to install the bracelet or the strap upside down. So take a moment, look at it, make sure that the buckle is on the 12 o'clock side, that the strap or the bracelet opens in the correct direction, that the customer will easily be able to put the watch on and it will work correctly when they put it on. All right, and then you're going to wrap up the watch to give it back to the customer. And this should be a quality presentation. If the watchmaker's gone through all this trouble to refinish the watch, we don't want it to get scratched up. So use a vinyl wrap or a lint-free tissue to be sure that the bracelet isn't rubbing against the case, to protect everything from, it could get scratched when it's in the drawer with the other envelopes to be called, that kind of stuff. Also, if you've got something like a warranty card or care information that you put in the envelope, this is a good time to put it in the envelope so it's ready to go when they come in and pick up the watch. Through AWCI, our members can download and customize and print out some brochures about the care of modern watches and clocks. It's an excellent to put this in with the repair when you return it to the customer. And when you return the watch to the customer, finally they've come in to pick up the watch. First of all, it should be very easy for you to locate that watch. You should have a place where completed jobs are, where you can go to. It should be easy to locate that, whether they have got their claim ticket or not. It should be easy to locate their job in that location. If for some reason it's not there, that master job record should be up to date. You should be able to go there and find out where the job is. So you'll know immediately it's still out for repair, or the watchmaker's got it, or it's in QC. It should always be updated with it so that you don't have to go around the store looking for the watch. Remember, this is their cherished timepiece. They entrusted it with you to take good care of it, and you want to show them that you have a good system for keeping track of this item. When you hand it to them, treat it just like it were a brand new timepiece. It's wrapped up in the envelope. Unwrap it. Use cotton gloves or nice gloves to treat it so it doesn't get scratched. Display it to the customer in a way that they can fall in love with it again. They've probably been without it for a little while. It may have been broken for a while even before they brought it into you, and we want them just to fall in love with this timepiece again. And take this opportunity to explain any of its features, especially vintage timepieces. Lots of times this is an item that somebody may have just inherited or has been in a drawer for many years, and they may have forgotten how it works. So this is an opportunity to show all the features, just like you would with a new watch, and to explain how to use it. And one great way to do that is you want to make sure that the watch is fully wound and set to the correct date and time when they take it home. So take a moment here, and as you wind up the watch for them, explain what you're doing. As you set the date and time, explain how that works. And this often will encourage questions from them. If they're not unsure, they'll go, oh, can you show me that again? How does that work? How far do I have to pull it out? How do I unscrew the crown? These different kinds of things, so that they don't come back later with questions because they didn't know how to operate the watch. We want them to go home knowing how to operate the watch with everything in great condition. All right, so I covered all of that right there. Turn it back over to Aaron. He's going to just come with a couple last-minute conclusions for you.
All right. So after using all this information that we've shared with you today, following these best practices will help eliminate many potential problems that could come across your store, and also make your repair department more efficient and more profitable, and also make your customers happy. Remember, as we said in the beginning, happier customers spend more money, and that is really the ultimate goal here. Is we are a service industry. Nothing we're actually doing is something that people actually really need. This is not a necessity. It's all a luxury item, and so we need to keep in mind that we want to provide the best service as possible. So in just a minute, we're going to address some of the questions that have come in during the webinar, if they haven't already been answered in what we've shared with you. But right now, we want to take a little bit of time to tell you some more about the American Watchmakers and Clockmakers Institute. And we'll have Jordan, who is the executive director, take over that and fill you in on what we're about.
All right, thank you, Aaron. So at the American Watchmakers Clockmakers Institute, our mission is to set service standards and educate the horological community And that includes everyone from the master watchmaker to the technician, to the salesperson, to the customer. Everything related to how watches and clocks and timepieces operate and are serviced and repaired or even made, that's our focus there, is education. One of the ways we accomplish that is through our monthly publication, which is Horological Times. It comes out every month. It's a beautiful full-color publication, and it's available not only to our members, but also to anyone who's interested in watches and clocks. And so you can visit our webpage, and if you click on the tab that says Join, you can see where you can subscribe to just the magazine for $99 a year. And so if you've got an interest, we encourage you to sign up there for that. Also on our webpage, you'll find a list of the continuing education classes that we offer. We offer classes throughout the year at our facility here just outside of Cincinnati, Ohio, as well as through our affiliate chapters, and also in combination with some of the brands and service centers throughout the country. A wonderful opportunity to learn more about the art for everyone from the beginner who's never taken apart a watch to the seasoned professional who's got 20 or 30 years experience who wants to learn what the newest technology that's available is. Our 21st century certifications are a thorough test of the skills necessary for watch repair today and for clock repair in the modern world. And they give confidence to employers when hiring a watchmaker that the individual will be capable of providing a high quality of service. Also, if you send your jobs out to somebody, you can know that somebody with that 21st century certification is a capable and proven watchmaker. Through our organization, members have access to more than 10,000 technical documents to guide them through the repair process, to our research library, and to our museum. We encourage you to visit our webpage. It's www.awci.com. At our webpage, you will find information about how to locate a watchmaker. Through the Find a Professional tab, you can find a practicing independent watchmaker. Through our Career Center, you can find individuals who are looking for employment. Our online store has got videos with training information as well as books on the topic, as well as some materials and supplies for the watchmaker. And of course, we've got our educational calendar, our certification calendar, preview of the latest edition of Horological Times, and it's an easy way to sign up and join our organization. So we encourage you to visit our webpage, as well as to follow us through the different social media channels. We're on Facebook at MyAWCI, on Instagram at American Watchmakers, Twitter at AWC Institute, and on YouTube at AWCI. And then once again, we want to thank our sponsors, Jules Burrell and Company and the Casker Company, two wonderful businesses providing services to the horological community as well as to the jewelry community for all your tool needs, material needs, watch parts, batteries. You can find those things at Jules Burrell and Casker.
So now let's get to the question and answer period. So here's some questions. Drew's going to come in and let us know of any questions that we might have had during the webinar. Drew, are you there?
Hello, Aaron. I'm here. There was only one question that was sent in, and the question was, is there a place or document that we can have for the QC procedures? The answer that I gave to him was not a generic one that I'm familiar with. Each brand has a different procedure, but it's an excellent question. I'll bring it up at the end. Do you have any thoughts on this, Aaron or Jordan?
I do, yeah. So if you visit our webpage and you go to our store, we do have several educational videos there. One of those videos is called Ensuring a Quality Controlled Watch Repair. It's a little different presentation than the one we gave today, but it does come with a brochure. It's about an 8-page brochure that does outline a checklist of things that you should look at before, after any repair process. This video is more geared specifically to the watchmaker and talks about some of the specifics a watchmaker should go through during that quality control. So I believe that video is $24.95 on our webpage. We have a whole series of videos that were presentations given at JCK that include things like water resistance testing, battery replacement, sizing watch bracelets. There's one that's just tips that can minimize problems during the repair process, a quality control one. There's a set of 7 DVDs that's got a special price for the 7 of them. as well, and each of those videos does come with a pamphlet with information as well. So I definitely would steer you in that direction for a specific list of quality control items.
This is Aaron. So I have an answer to this question. I think the way I read the question is that I don't know if you're looking for a document where to write down the results of QC procedures. Is that how you interpreted it, Drew?
Yes, similar to the sheet that watchmakers use when they are timing out a watch over the 4 days. As if we wind it up fully, we check the rundown time and so forth.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I use a spreadsheet that I've created based on big manufacturers. You know, it was a notepad that they gave me that had their procedures on it for timing, also their procedures for the automatic winding test, and I've kind of modified it and expanded on it for my own purposes. You know, I haven't really distributed that, but if it's something that you'd be interested in obtaining from me, you can contact me, AWCI at AWCI.com, and I'd be willing to share that with you.
Perfect. Thank you, Aaron. I'll send that message right over to him.
Is there anybody who'd like to raise their hand and give us any more questions? If not, then we'll conclude the webinar and get on to the next topic next time.
All right, thank you everyone for your attendance. It's been a pleasure to be able to deliver this webinar with you. If you've got other staff members who missed it today, we'll be offering it again tomorrow at 3 o'clock as well, and then it will be archived on our YouTube channel and on our webpage at awci.com/webinars. You can share it with them so that they can learn from this as well. We thank you so much.
Thank you for joining us, everybody. Goodbye.